afterward. Thank you, Aaron. There you go. And so it will be recorded. For those that are aware, we do have a Chicagoland-Wisconsin YouTube page where we posted the first event. This is part two of a two-part session on ChatGPT and AI. Once we get kicked off, please make sure you're on mute, and we're going to leave it that cameras are off so that the speaker can present. So with that, excited to introduce Brad Gauthier again, and he is the CEO, founder of Sitecast.com. He has been coding since the age of 12, and he has a very successful business and has really advanced how ChatGPT and AI is being used, specifically in the marketing, web development, and even in the sales area. So with that, we're gonna recap a few things from the first session, dive into some new features and the internals of ChatGPT a little bit more. There are some specialized forms of GPT, and I think a few other live demos where maybe you're going to upload some documents and a few things like that. So with that, John, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we turn it over to Brad?
So if you guys have any questions during the call, write them into the chat for the call, and we're going to record those, and we're going to use those to then get ideas for the next calls. We want to try to steer this towards where the group wants to go. There's no way for Brad to just say, okay, I'm going to teach you step by step. You know, there's too many steps, thousands of things, thousands of directions he can go in. So we're going to go in the direction the group wants to go in. So write down your suggestions, write down your questions, and then we'll get to them in the last 15 minutes. We're going to do a Q&A from what's going on today. Brad's going to go over what he's going over today, but just a preview. He's going to try to show you behind the scenes of how it works and the whole system, so you understand the whole system and not just typing in prompts. And with that, we'll give it over to Brad.
Thanks, Brad. It's all you.
All right. Hello, everyone. So as Zach and John said, yeah, it's pretty exciting what I have for you. I hope you went to the first one. If not, it's on YouTube. But I just wanted to kind of give a quick recap of what we had talked about, so we're all on the same page here. But essentially, we are living through the most exciting time, in my opinion. As I started building, as Zach mentioned, I started building websites when I was 12 years old, and that was in 1998. Been building websites ever since. In about 2016, I started building AI-powered software, and that AI-powered software was mostly using IBM Watson at the time. And IBM Watson was a really transformative technology, but it was more, not to diminish it, but it was like more like brute force in terms of it just was like a really strong computer that was really smart. Nowadays, with all this new technology, the fundamental technology behind it is there are these models, and specifically with ChatGPT, they're called large language models, LLMs, and these LLMs are able to do really mind-blowing things because they've basically, most of the internet, most of the books, there's a gray area of what it has been trained on, but most of the internet has gone into these large language models in a way where it really understands the overall society that we live in. And so it's an incredibly smart innovation. And what we're going to do here today is, one, I really want to show you how these LLMs work, like kind of behind the scenes. And so my hope is that if you see how ChatGPT works behind the scenes, it may help you use it in a way where like you just have a better grasp of the technology, because it's so simple to go in to ChatGPT and just ask it a couple of things, and it's like it'll give you like an okay result. However, if you go in and you have a deep understanding of what's going on behind the scenes, the output is going to be incredible. And if you remember, I feel like I hammered this home the last time, but it's really a thing where it's like, garbage in, garbage out. And so like if you put simple stuff into ChatGPT, you're going to get simple stuff out of ChatGPT. If you really understand what needs to go in to get a good output, your experience is going to be night and day better. And so with that said, I'm going to share my screen here, and we are going to do some live stuff. Let's see. So I'm going to make sure it's optimized for video. Okay. All righty. So I assume you can see my screen. And this is the default view of ChatGPT. If you have the free account, you have access to what it's called GPT 3.5. If you have the pro account, you have access to the latest models, which right now is GPT-4. It's actually somewhat called GPT-4 Turbo. It's like just kind of like an updated version of GPT. But what is going on behind that is there's this chat interface. However, what it's accessing is this GPT-4. And if you don't have the paid account, you're missing out on, actually, let me see if I can find it. Oops. Let me see if I could. It is the model comparison for LLM. I'll see if we can let's see. So there's there's somewhere on the internet, you don't need to see it, but they did a comparison, and the stuff that these LLMs can do, 3.5 to 4 is just like an astronomical leap. And one example that just comes to mind that I could tell you is that from a legal standpoint. So GPT 3.5 passed the bar exam, which is incredible, but it passed the bar exam at the 10th percentile, which is great. That's probably better than most attorneys. They might have taken 4 times the bar and probably squeaked by. GPT 3.5 did at the 10th percentile. The GPT-4 passed it at the 90th percentile. And so GPT-4, in theory, is a better attorney than the vast majority of attorneys in the US. So it just shows you how advanced these systems are getting. And hopefully this year, maybe next year, there's even going to be GPT-5 or whatever they call it. That's going to be night and day, even beyond from there. So it's a really exciting world. And I just want to, before we get into ChatGPT, I just want to show you where the world of AI is headed. I know this is all about ChatGPT and sales. However, the advancements in AI in general, I can't not show you this. So this, being in your industry, you may or may not have seen this, but this is a complete game changer. So what has happened here, and it's with LLMs. So what NVIDIA and OpenAI and a few other companies are doing is they're creating essentially worlds using AI in a way where these simulations, and this may or may not make sense of what you just saw, but in the old days with AI, you would say, like, let's say a robot would hold a pen. You could have it say, hold it left, hold it right. If it goes left and it does something, it gets rewarded. If it goes on the wrong spot, it doesn't. And so it was very rudimentary of what was possible. Let me just play this again. So it was incredibly rudimentary what you could get robots to do. However, now they're learning ways to create these artificial simulations that allow for, as you see, a robot to exist countless times. It could, instead of just being in the real world where you have a physical hand controlling a pen, it now is in a simulation. And so that simulation, you can run it infinitely amount of times. It could seem like it's through 1,000 years, and it might have just took a week of compute. And the hardest problems in robotics is being solved by this technology at this point. So it's pretty exciting, where now robots are learning how to twirl a pen, and it's it's a really exciting world that we're headed in. So it's just kind of giving you a glimpse of where we're headed with all of this stuff. But back to what we're talking about for LLM for sales and things like that. So this is a secret area that I have access to, which is pretty exciting to play around with. And what it is this is OpenAI's, they call it Playground. It's essentially, it allows developers like me access into the heart of how these systems work, because ChatGPT is one way to interact with the LLMs. However, you can build software that interacts with them as well, and that's what I do in my career, is build software using these LLMs. And the really neat thing is that this is going to show essentially how it works behind the scenes. So when you go into ChatGPT, it basically forecasts it. It's, how can I help you today? It's incredibly open-ended of what it can do, it can help with, and all of that. However, that's I think the main reason why people don't use tools like ChatGPT. And it's worth mentioning that we're talking about ChatGPT, but there's a ton of other ones. It's only going to grow. There's Claude, there is Gemini, there's Grok, there's all these different systems out there that essentially do the same thing. They do it in different ways, and some are smarter than others right now. And as you saw with like Google, they're completely dropping the ball. I assume you saw some of that the launch of Gemini, which I think is pretty eye-opening. However, they all essentially do the same thing. So when I talk about ChatGPT, I'm talking about just interacting with these LLMs in general. So when you're interacting with an LLM, if it's just a straight up LLM, it's just, how can it help? And an easy way to think of that is it's a helpful assistant. So what I want to show here is that this is going to start to paint a picture of what's happening behind the scenes with ChatGPT. And so there's 3 elements to ChatGPT. There's the system role, there's the user, and then there's the assistant. So the system role is what nobody sees. In this scenario, which is why I'm showing you this, I have a developer whitelist, so I have access to this kind of stuff. But what nobody sees when they're interacting with AI, an LLM AI, is they don't see the system role. That's up to the developers, and they put that in, and you don't, as a user, you don't get to see that. However, it exists behind the scenes. And so with the system role, ChatGPT is just a helpful assistant. And I say just, it's like a super intelligent, helpful assistant. However, if you want to have very specific outputs, you need to understand that you need to create an assistant that is dialed in to what you're trying to accomplish. And so with the system role, I have an example here. Oh, actually, I'll show you that to you later. So I'll do a generic system role, and the one that I actually like to really do is, here, let's see, like, you are an expert in contract manufacturing representatives. Let's do manufacturing law with a focus on contract manufacturing representatives. Okay, so now we've now told it's now no longer just a helpful assistant. It is now an expert in manufacturing law with a focus on contract manufacturing representatives. You work with manufacturers, let's say, based in Illinois, and your expertise is in sales contracts. Okay, so now it is a fine-tuned AI. This is super simple. Like when we develop code, these system roles are massive. And I would assume behind the ChatGPT, even though it's just a generic helpful assistant, I bet their system role is pretty big as well, because you can go in here and say your tone is conversational. I want to do that for that, for this, professional, and your, let's just say that. So your tone is professional. Okay, so now that's what this AI is. And so your user, which is, so when I go, I'm going to zoom in on this one because I know it's a little tricky to see. So right here, so now we just defined ChatGPT, but behind the scenes. And then the user is whatever you type in here. So I'm going to go in and say, what are some, this is like a prompt. So what are some concerns I should be aware of with initial agreements with manufacturers? Yeah. So actually, let's say, all right, your client is ABC Corp, and they are a contract manufacturing representative for the electronics industry. Okay, so now, as you see, now it's like super dialed in. Okay, so then if I go in here and I hit submit, now it's gonna be like, this is an incredibly, if I just type this into ChatGPT, it'd be like, it really doesn't know what you're talking about. However, I set the system role. And so the system role is ensuring that it has a really strong understanding of everything that I just typed in here. And this is where you could really do a ton of things. And I'll pull it full circle with ChatGPT. But behind the scenes, you see, like, this is going to be the output. And from a legal standpoint, again, it passed the bar really high. However, it's not an official attorney. So if there's ever any like actual like agreement or something like that, you probably want to still talk to a licensed attorney or or something. However, you can kind of fast track those conversations in a way where all I did was ask, what are the concerns I should be aware of? And now I have a really good understanding of what's going on here. So you see, there's the system role, there's the user, and then there's the assistant. And then let me just add one more. So if you remember in my last talk, I talked about the chain of thought. And so what is going on here is, if you add up all of this stuff, so the system role, the user, the assistant, everything that's in the conversation is called a context window. And that context window is going to be what, like, when you think that you're just adding to the chat, but actually what happens is when you go over to here and you submit something, every time you submit it, it's submitting the whole thing back to the model. And so I hope that this explains it, because let's say, okay, let's just have it expand on something. So let's expand on number 2. That's probably a common one. Expand on 2. So all I need to do is type that, because it's going to know above in the context window what's going on here. So there's no other 2. Like, if there was multiple lists and it had multiple 2s, you want to be more clear with it. But there's only 1, 2. So let me just hit submit. And now that everything up there was resubmitted, and now it's answering again. And so the context window is growing, and everything above it is going to support what's below it and what is going to come out next. And this is where you really start to see the power of these systems, because it allows for it allows for you and your team to think through things without needing to hire expensive, in this scenario, hire expensive attorneys. Eventually, you'd probably want to get there. However, you can really do a lot of groundwork. And so it's pretty sweet how this works behind the scenes. So I hope that this paints a picture. I'm going to hop over to actual ChatGPT now. But with that, I see that there potentially are some questions. If I don't want to go further in this because this is a developer area. I hope that this paints a picture of what's going on when you use ChatGPT. So is there any questions that could be like read to me, or any issues, or if not, I'm going to hop over to ChatGPT.
We don't have anything in the chat right now. I think you're good to go.
Okay, cool. All right, and feel free to ask questions. I try to cover all bases when I explain these things, but if you do have a question or something's ambiguous, definitely, feel free to ask me. All right, so now that you have that understanding, this is where you can now look at this where, okay, ChatGPT by default is just a helpful assistant. And so how can we get it to understand what we were just doing without having access to that system role? Well, there's a few different ways. The old school way is by just going in and saying, you are an expert in law. Like you could type it in like that, and then you ask a question. That's super simple. You'd have expert in law in Illinois, it with a focus on, some industry. So that's the old school way. And that's probably, if you just need a one-off thing, that's probably the simplest way to essentially set a system role and make it more specific for what you're trying to do. When you do this, you want to do it right away on the top, because that context window, there's this might be for like the version or the session 3 of ChatGPT if you want to do this, but essentially, without going too deep, the context window has various points in it where it's strong and weak. They're actively trying to fix this. However, the stuff on the top of the context window, so whatever you type in first and all the way down at the bottom, are going to be the highest probability that it affects the output. Everything that's in the middle starts to get fuzzy. So as it goes down, it's kind of like 2/3 of the way down, it starts to not really forget, but it gets like fuzzy. And they test this through, it's kind of a cool thing. It's called needle in the haystack. So they'll have this huge context window, and they'll just ask it a random thing about like the super just small like word within this massive context window. And if it can find it, it shows that it doesn't have that fuzzy effect to it. But just realize that whatever's up in top, whatever's up at bottom is the most important. Everything in the middle, it gets a little fuzzy. And that's just right now. If you're watching this on YouTube and it's 6 months from now, that's probably a solved issue. But right now, it's an issue. So that's the old way of doing it. And that is, if you just need a one-off thing, that's the best way to do it. However, this is ChatGPT version 2, or session 2. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper. So here's some fun things. So one is you can go over here. And by the way, this is actually worth mentioning, is that there are essentially 3 different types of ChatGPT. And one is the free version. If you're using the free version and you want to use it seriously, don't use the free version, at least upgrade to the plus plan. However, with the plus plan, OpenAI may potentially still use whatever you put in there. So if you have like incredible industry secrets you want to have a conversation with, you probably shouldn't just have the plus plan. So like for us, we have I don't know if they call it the enterprise plan or something, but it's basically like a higher tier where you need a minimum of 2 seats. So if you have a team, it's fine. But you have 2 seats, it's like $30 a month per seat, but it doesn't use any of the information that you tell it. And so it's just a little bit more protection from an IP perspective. Either way, it's not like someone at I'd assume they probably have better things to do, but it's not like someone at OpenAI is like reading what you're typing. It's more of like the lower tiers could potentially use what you've typed just to train future systems. So it's neither here nor there. But anyway, so that's what this is here. So the custom instructions is the first. Write this down. This is so powerful. So powerful, I don't even use it. Because I do some other stuff. But if you are, and I guess I put that out there where I use this for like every single scenario. And so I'll show you what I do. However, if you want to just use it for your business, you can do some incredible things here. So like in the custom instructions, and I think if I hover over here, yeah, you can learn about it. So I'm not going to go too deep in here, but basically it's a fun feature that allows you to, like, what would you like ChatGPT to know about you to provide better responses? So let's say oh, here you go on the left side. So I clicked in here, you see right here. So a few examples that they have are like, where are you based? So let's say you're only using it for your business. You could then go in and say, we are based in Illinois. We work with manufacturers in, XYZ, whatever you want to put in there. And whatever you put in here, ChatGPT is now going to use that somewhat like a system role where it goes before your initial user prompt. So it just helps outputs be more specific. And then on the flip side of that, and you get 1,500 characters. I have some that I basically have custom instructions that I keep just in like a Google document in a way where I'll just paste them in here if I need this. But I typically keep it empty because I use it for our being a parent. I use it for being different sales things. I use it for coding. So I try not to dilute my input. But then the flip side of this is, how would you like ChatGPT to respond? And this is where you could, like, let's say it could be respond in a conversational tone. So one of the issues with ChatGPT from the get-go is that it's very academic of how it responds in a conversational tone. So like, if you don't like that, you can tell it here, and you have 1,500 1,500 characters to say how you would like it to respond. Maybe you're like an engineering type where respond, or like here, like use only bullet points, or you can whatever you want here. Then every time that you do a chat, it will only use bullet points if that's your thing. I'm going to delete all these. So I hope that is just kind of a really helpful feature that you may not have known about because it's hidden over here. So you find your user account and then custom instructions. So that's that. Essentially, that goes between, let's just refresh here. So it goes between the system role and that initial user prompt. So just imagine it being right here. Like that's custom instructions. That's where it is. So that's where what you just typed in goes right here. So every time then that you put in a new user, so I go in here as a new user, it's going to have that be between the system role and this. So it's, I think, incredibly helpful to understand. Beyond that, we had briefly mentioned about GPTs on the last call. So where the world is headed are these, you don't want to just have these LLMs be a helpful assistant. What you want them to be is incredibly specific for what you're trying to do. And so when you just go in here, it's incredibly specific. However, when you want to use something that has more knowledge, that's where these GPTs come in. And GPTs are incredibly powerful. The generic term for it, in my opinion, is an AI agent. And so these agents, so when you're using Claude or Gemini or any of these, they might use a different term. They're obviously not going to use GPT because that's kind of owned by ChatGPT at this point. However, they're going to use something. And the concept is these agents are highly specific for a certain task. And so if you have I think you need to have the pro account. But what's cool is I'm going to go over here and you'll see that there's all sorts of ones that other people have made. which, may be good, maybe not. I don't think that the user experience is all that good for these just yet, and this store and stuff. But you can kind of think of it like an app store, but it's like a GPT store. And so it's worth exploring. You can find all sorts of ones that can do everything from create logos to help you with your fitness goals and everything in between. So it's pretty fascinating what's being done. So these are incredibly helpful. However, you can make your own. And so let's go over here and create one. And so I'm just going to go, there's two ways to create one. And the easy way is to go over here and you basically talk to it, or you could just fill out this form. And so either way, it's going to be, you'll get the same result. So let's just do it through the conversation for a little bit, because it's going to do some initial things. So what would you like to make? We want to have a sales assistant for the contract manufacturing representative industry. All right, so and simple is better sometimes. However, like that one that I showed you last time, I spent a lot of time really fine tuning that one. So the folks that emailed me about it and got access to it, I hope you enjoyed it. Is that I had a handful of people comment afterwards that they really liked it. So good job everyone for using that. All right, so let's say, so it's going to go through and do some basic stuff. Fine, it wants to name it, so that's good. And you can go through it this way. I'm just going to go through and it's going to generate an image. Then I'm going to go behind the scenes and we'll not do this conversational way of doing it. So once this generates the profile, all right, good. Okay, so now it has an image and, oh, it actually didn't name it. So this, it wanted to name it this. So I'm just going to put it here. Okay. All right. So now it has essentially, so now you see those custom instructions. In my opinion, this is, again, it's not like the custom instructions. It's more like the thing that goes between the system role and your first prompt, if you think about it that way. So all of this stuff, and it's a little bit more advanced than the way that I'm explaining it, but that's essentially what's happening here. So then this is where, like, let's say you are using it for sales and you do a specific one for a certain product that you have. You could upload files to that, where maybe you have the sales sheet, a spec sheet, different PDFs, whatever. You can upload that right here, and that would be accessible from that. But you have to. So you see there's capabilities, web browsing, image generation, and then this code interpreter. You would need to select this code interpreter as well in order to access those files. And then there's like way more advanced features that I could maybe show in a future one or something, but there's like actions, which are essentially, they're like functions, but behind the scenes they're called functions, but they're just advanced ways to use it. So I'm just gonna go with this on a simple level, and we're going to hit create. So I invite only, okay, it's fine. I'm going to go with that. And now we can view the GPT. So now instead of talking to a helpful assistant, now we're talking to this. And so it's again, not exactly like what is going on over here. It's only going to use what's in this context window. Over here, there is other stuff beyond those instructions that we just saw. So, just keep that in mind, that there may be, some other things that are going on that you don't have control of. But for the most part, you now have someone to help you with sales. And so you're going to like this. So let's say I am a salesperson for here. show how simple it is. So if you just went into ChatGPT and asked this, it'd be like, what are you talking about? I'm a salesperson. What is my day like? So again, ChatGPT would be so boring of a response to this, but now let's see what it says. So I'm just gonna do this on the fly here. So now you see all I typed in was this, but now it's as a salesperson in this industry, but here's what the day looks like. So that's cool. So now this may or may not look like your day. However, it's probably a lot closer than if you just went into ChatGPT and said, I'm a salesperson, what's my day like? That could be, are you in retail sales? Are you a real estate agent? Are you know, like, what are you? And so you'd have to do all of this prompting behind the like in the top where, if you remember, I said like you are an expert in this focus and all that kind of stuff. You don't need to do that when you create these agents to do it automatically for you. So this may or may not look like your day, but let's do so with clients. So let's if we do for the electronics industry, so we're gonna expand on the client meeting. So who is the point of contact for, all right, contact at an average client. So just again, going to be super generic with this just to see what it comes out. But we've targeted the electronics industry, which is still narrow focus. And no, so now you see who's the point of contact. So we're starting to see who these people are. And we have the engineers, the procurement managers, the supply chain managers, operations, the executive level, the CTO and the COO. You start to see that there are a lot of different points of contact depending on who you need to talk to and what you're trying to do. So now you have this information, and we're going to do something pretty fun here. So from here, let's again remember that this is a whole context window. So now we're going to it's learned from this. So let's say, and everyone in sales knows that you don't want to just randomly talk to someone in the business. You want to talk to the decision maker. So who are the decision makers? So these might not match up specifically to who are the points of contact. You might have a point of contact that has no decision-making ability at all. And so, like, as you see, it falls on the executive level, depending on how big the business is and what their budgets are and the hierarchy. You might have like the procurement folks or whatever have direct decision-making ability because there's just too many things to go on that everything can't just fall back on the executive team. So we're going to explore this procurement. Let's do the director of procurement. So this is where it gets incredibly powerful from a sales perspective. So let's take this okay, so create a persona for a director of procurement. All right, so again, in sales, we all know about personas. So now it's going to create a persona for the potential decision maker in these businesses. So we got Alex, he's 42, director of procurement, company size 500 to 1,000 employees, and all of these different things show up here. And when this is done, I'm going to now do something more fun where we're going to take this and I'll just start. We're going to wait for this to finish. And again, a lot of this stuff, it's up to you, but you don't need to read it word for word unless it's like something that you specifically need, because it's probably going to be fairly accurate. Like if you are pasting this into an email or something, you probably want to go word for word and check that it's not hallucinating, it's not making up information, that it's accurate. But for the sake of this, I like basically haven't read a single single thing. So let's do I'm just going to copy this here. So we're going to then copy this, and I'm going to open up a new chat. So now we're back. Oh, it's at a helpful assistant. We've made that GPT. So now here's a fun little shortcut. So if you see down here, I can type @ and we have, this is the latest one, so it's on top. So here's the manufacturing. So now I'm not just locked into this one, so I'm locked into this one. But this is where it's like incredibly powerful, because now I'm talking to it for this prompt only. And I can actually, the next prompt, I can talk to a different thing. So let's say all right, we'll get to that. So I'm just going to paste in here. I'm just going to paste that in here and see what it says. So what we're doing is, all right, so here, now we have this persona, and I just pasted that in. I'm just curious what it's going to say about this. So what it's doing is, here are a few strategic approaches and recommendations for engage. This is amazing. And this works for every industry, every topic. It's not just sales. Could be human resources. It could be marketing. It can be, it's an exciting world. So now we have somewhat of a strategy, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, once I can start typing it, summarize this into a paragraph. Summarize this persona into a paragraph. All right. So we're going to summarize this, and we're now going to go super advanced here. So once this summarizes, I'm going to do something pretty cool. Okay. All right, there we go. So let's copy this. Oh, you can also hit this button. And I'm not a big fan of copying from ChatGPT. It always has like weird formatting and all that stuff. So that's always been an issue on the internet, is copying and pasting, as you probably know. But I'm going to go over here and watch this. I'm going to create a new GPT. So I'm going to just go in here and I'm going to paste this in and see what it says. So I'm making a GPT for this persona. This is serious power usage stuff here. So we have this persona. Sometimes it takes a little while, but if you think of like how powerful this is, it's worth waiting. So all right, we named it Alex Rivera. So let's see what's happened over here. Okay. Yeah, there's some bug that it's not. I actually wouldn't name that. So like Director of Procurement. So let's do that. And so and it's that person. So now let's hit create, and I'm just going to hit update. And we're going to go in and hit view GPT. All right, sweet. Now we have a GPT for the director of procurement of a company. So I'm going to open up another chat. So if you're a tab hoarder, this gets pretty crazy sometimes. Like I have chat experiences where I have like 30 chats open and I'm like, where is everything? And it kind of gets confusing. However, if you can, organize it properly. So what we're going to do is now we're going to kind of go from a different direction here. So we are going to create a fake product. And I am going to go with, so this would be an example of where you don't need to create a GPT or do all the custom instructions or whatever. I just need this real quick. So you are a company who just invented a LiDAR sensor, which has a longer, I typed this up this morning, viewing distance wider viewing range, and it is cheaper to manufacture. Draft an overview of how the company can position it in the market. All right, so you see what we're doing here is we're telling it what it is by saying you are a company who just invented it, and then you're giving it a task on a super simple level. You could also say like the tone, you could give, give additional things, but for the sake of this, we're just going to do that. And so now we're going to be looking at where we basically just invented a LiDAR sensor that has a longer viewing distance, wider viewing range, and is cheaper to manufacture. So someone just came to you with this, and this is what they would be presenting, but we just made it up on the fly. And so now we're going to have this print out. And again, for the sake of this demo, we don't need to look really read too deeply because I just invented this product on the fly. And we are going to take this once it's done, probably right there. And again, with the custom instructions, you could have it like do this in bullet points, or don't, like, sometimes it always has a conclude. Here's a good use of custom instructions. It for some reason it always gives an intro, which isn't always necessary. Like, yes, it's great that it's telling me this stuff, but I just set it up here, So you could, in the custom instructions on how you want it to respond, don't include an introduction or conclusion, for instance. So I'm just going to skip that part, and we're just going to grab here. And so now we have essentially a positioning statement for this product. So now we're going to go back to, I'll try to stick with the same tabs just so we don't get too confused. Here, let's go and let's skip this, and we'll do a new one with manufacturing sales genius of, all right, actually, let's do, so I can show you how to pull this in. So we're going to do at, and then manufacturing, and then there it is. So let's say, let's create a sales strategy for this product. So, and then what I'm pasting in would be what, one of your clients would probably give you. And so if you remember, we're still giving it a task. It knows the role and it knows a lot of that stuff, but we still need to give it a task if we want a specific output. So now it's going to create a sales strategy from the perspective of a contract manufacturing representative. So it's identifying the target markets. It's looking at the advantages. If you remember from the last talk that we did, I had it do a SWOT analysis. I always love doing that just to get the context window a little bit smarter. And then I'll typically do like an executive summary as well. But or actually, all of this is on the fly. Let's do an executive summary after we have this here. So draft an executive summary to present to the director of procurement. All right, so now you're going to start to see where all this comes full circle. So and while this is printing, it's worth noting that we had talked about briefly last time about uploading documents. So that could be a spreadsheet, it could be a PDF. Like I said earlier, these GPTs can have documents uploaded, and then the document is always available as long as code interpreters is checked. That document is always available to the GPT when it needs it. If you need a specific one, so like instead of me pasting this in, like this right here, maybe they just provided you a PDF. You could click this little paperclip, and you could upload that PDF. But you know, I just copied and pasted it. So here is the executive summary. Okay, so now we're going to go back over, if you're following me, we have this GPT that is a director of procurement. So we can play these simulations. This is advanced here. It's so exciting if you really start using this in your day-to-day, because it's so powerful. So now we have an executive summary that's drafted for the director of procurement, and now we can, let's say you create one of your clients, you could create a GPT for that client, for that person. You could also, like this one was generic just for the sake of this demo. However, you could put in their dog's name is Spot. They love to go golfing. You could add whatever that persona is. But let's just put in, what do you think of this executive summary, and what are your top 10? I'll do 3 questions just because it takes a while for it to print out 10. Top 3 questions. So now we can preview the conversation. So now we're going in, what do you think of this executive summary? So we can now, as the director of procurement, we have Alex over here. This person is going to preview what kind of things that person may have questions about. So now, because like, as this is printing, we can talk about like the stuff that I just did is what from those perspectives. So from the GPT that's a contract manufacturer, it's creating an executive summary from that perspective. But we've trained a director of procurement from this perspective. And so, you know, like these systems aren't just absolute like almost godlike creatures. They have you have them as certain biases and perspectives. So doing this, now you start to see if your executive summary where the issues may be. So a question that Alex may have is, how does the company plan to initially penetrate these diverse and competitive markets? And what are the specific growth strategies to ensure the adoption of your LiDAR sensors over established competitors? Okay, so this may or may not be a question that would be asked of you, but I think you'll see. So let's open up a new one, and we'll take that, and we're going to now go back. I hope you're following me. I'm trying not to bounce around too much, but you see what I'm doing here. So now we have a new chat, and we are talking to our sales genius, and the director of procurement, Alex, just asked this question. Oh, actually, shoot. I am going to do it over here because, okay, so what just happened here is if I did it here, it's a new conversation. We want to have that context window. So like over here, it knows about this stuff. Oh, actually, the better one would be this one. So we have this LiDAR thing. And so let's actually go in and do so now we can pull in this one, and then the director of this one that we're looking at was the one where we invented the LiDAR. So the director of procurement, Alex, just asked this question. So now we can now proactively have an answer to that question, which is crazy to think about. So, and like, as you see what I'm doing, I'm not using any of my brain, really, if you think about it. So you can do this all day long, where if you had to sit down with a paper and pen or just like your notepad or whatever, this is a lot of brain power to think about all this stuff. But I'm doing this without really using my brain at all. I just know where to put these certain things and what to put in it. And so that question, which is potentially going to be asked from the director of procurement based on your executive summary, here's the answer to it. So here's different ways to penetrate the market. Here's some growth strategies, and again, the conclusion. But then let's say, we'll do one final thing. So now let's do, actually, here, we are going to.
So Brad, is this a GPT talking to another GPT? That was a question in the comments here.
Basically, yeah. But you're kind of manually doing it. But yes, yeah, for sure. All right, again, like I said, it gets kind of hairy with all these tabs. Let's see, it's probably this one. Yeah, the director of procurement. Okay, so to answer number 1, so now, like, here's that thing. This will be the final thing, and then we're almost at the hour, so we can switch to a couple other things. So here again, to repeat, and I hope I'm not jumping around too much. I know there's a lot to take in, but you see the director of procurement had questions or potential questions, and it was this one, which is the 1. This could include details about all that. So now in that conversation, in that context window, to answer number 1, which is this, here was that thing that we just pasted in. And so let's see what Alex comes back with. So your lab provides a solid framework. Here's a synthesis of your approach and further insights. So now you can now have a conversation with this procurement manager about that. So that's really where I'm probably going to stop in that regard, because I hope that answers it. But we can always, go deeper. But with that said, where are the questions? What are your thoughts? Or I can keep talking.
Hey, Brad.
Yeah.
So I think there's also one in there. When you add if you add websites for reference, you can just add in the URLs, and I know in the GPT that you create, how does it go outside? Is it there's the ability to upload documents, and keep it confined to a specific thing, and how do you do that, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's a few different ways to do that. So one is, it's not really a few different ways. Here's the way, or at least how I do it. So let's say use the web. It's worth noting that whatever is in here that's coming out, there's a knowledge cutoff. And the knowledge cutoff is when these models have been trained. And so I believe the current knowledge cutoff for GPT-4 is April of 2023, meaning that if something happened in June of 2023, this model, just without using the web or anything, has no idea that that thing happened. So you have to be aware that there's knowledge cutoffs. I would imagine that these knowledge cutoffs are going to keep getting closer and closer to the current date. However, it basically is when they start training their current model, that's when the knowledge cutoff happens. There are other systems, there's other systems like Perplexity that is like ChatGPT, but it just uses the web straight away. And Perplexity is sweet in a way where it has a potential of replacing Google in reality. But Bing, Google, all of these are also creating a chat experience as well. But for ChatGPT, we'll see it. Use the web to research the top LiDAR.
So Brad, the question in the chat was from Lydia. She was saying if maybe you wanted to look at the past 6 months of New York Times articles, could you tell it to use the web and it would still have that knowledge, even though the cutoff is before that, because you told it to go look for it, or is that not available right now?
Yes and no. And the thing is like, it may have access to that or it may not. It's kind of like it will go out on the web and find some stuff, and it will provide, like you'll see at this bullet point. So this thing right here, it's using this page to get this information. So here's LiDAR companies. It used this page for that response. And then here is, let's see if there's, so now this response used this page and it found this page, which has all of these different LiDAR companies here. And so each one of these is like a footnote, essentially, and you can go check it. And so like you see here, it used one. So it really only used 2 pages. So it's not gonna, if you say, go scan the past 6 months of articles about this, it's probably not gonna go read every single article. You can do some of that crazy stuff when you code it. So like if you hire a developer, you can do some real crazy stuff. But just natively inside of ChatGPT, it's only just gonna find a few different pages that it needs to answer any given question. So that's the short answer of it. Is I always just say use the Reb to research this, or you could say visit. Let's actually try that. So let's let's say this specific one. So visit this page, and I'm not sure if this will work actually. Summarize, because sometimes when you want to summarize copyrighted material, it might not. It'll say it won't do it. Summarize the content. It may or may not work. I don't know. I know that it won't like summarize books and things like that anymore, just from a copywriting issue. But it looks like it did. So it looks like it visited it and then is summarizing it. So so that's pretty cool. So I hope that answers the question. Any other anything else that pops out at you? I have more things to show if no one has questions, but
Do you want to show possibly how they can upload maybe external documents to be able to have those summarized or something of that format?
yeah, so I'm going to I was trying to find one I couldn't find one that was like, all of these were so massive. Let me save link. So I'm going to try to save this PDF. If that works. I'm just going to do this. I'm not sure why it's not downloading. Let's see. Here, worst case scenario, I can just save this as a PDF here. And what you would, oh, maybe because it's a big document. I don't know. So that's weird. I don't know why I can't save this document, but let's just pretend. Okay, so if we go over here and we go into that manufacturing sales genius and we go into edit, the 2 things that you want to do is one, so you have to keep in mind that there's 2 different times that you would be uploading documents. One would be if you want that GPT to always have access to this information. So let's say you created a GPT for one of your clients or a product of your clients or something. You would want to always have access to that, and you would upload that right here. And you want to make sure that this code interpreter is checked. So you would just upload that file here, and you would be able to, you'd be good to go. The other area is when you're in here and you just want it for that specific chat. Let's see if it finished down. It must be wrong with that PDF. But so if you just want it for that specific chat, you could either just drag it and drop it anywhere in here, I think, or you could click this and you could just upload it. And then you just want to use very specific language around accessing it. So you wouldn't just upload it and then ask some random question. You would want to specifically say, use this document to answer this question or something. you probably wouldn't word it like that, but you know what I mean? Like just like how I said, I specifically told it to use the web. In this scenario, you would specifically say, use this document. And that's how you would do
For
that.
example, you could upload a brochure of a line, and potentially, if you have the right question, you could essentially help it answer the question for an engineer, say.
For
Right?
sure. So like I'll I'm gonna stop sharing and we'll talk here. So basically I'll paint a picture of what we would do is basically in that scenario, let's say you create a line card for a manufacturer and you would be able to, if we have that director of procurement GPT, what you could do is you could create that PDF, upload that to that conversation and go to the director of procurement GPT and ask it, what do you think of this line card? And it will then it'll respond based on that persona that you already created, and it might highlight some areas that you need to improve. So it's like, it doesn't mention anything about this certain technology, or it doesn't mention the lead time, or whatever that may be. But it will start to. It's like a super helpful coworker essentially, and you can create these GPTs to do that, where you would upload that, and then you could ask these GPTs or these personas or whatever on those documents, and that's where it gets really helpful because a lot of times, especially in sales and marketing, we're so close to the product that we can't see the forest through the trees. And when we're really close to the product, we make assumptions in a way where it's like, oh, everyone should know that this LiDAR sensor does this specific thing. But it's like, how many people know about this specific feature of a LiDAR sensor? Probably not. And so it helps give you these like perspectives from different angles that you might not have thought about. And so what I would say, kind of wrapping up this whole conversation, is for me, and brings it full circle of why I don't use the custom instructions, because I'm always in ChatGPT. Like our software, so real quick, our software for Sitecast, we can build websites incredibly powerful using AI with our software, sitecast.com. However, there's a lot of areas outside of websites. And so if I have anything website related, I just use our software. But for anything else, so even like what I was mentioning, I use it for parenting. We bring our there's different, like we're really big into Montessori. So I actually created a GPT that is, if anyone knows about the Maria Montessori, she lived about 100 years ago. She believed that the child starts learning right away, and the most formative years are the early years, and it's not when they get into kindergarten. So anyway, so Maria Montessori lived a long time ago in an era that didn't have technology. And so what I did, and any of you that also have kids probably deal with this, is like, how do we navigate? We want them to read a book, or we want them to use this like marker or something, but they just want to use the iPad. And so how do we navigate this new world that we're living in? And for me, how do I navigate that from a Montessori method? And so I created Maria Montessori, but from a modern approach. And so now I have this GPT that anytime that we have some sort of question of like, how do we limit screen time, or what's the best way to get our daughter to learn the ABCs, or whatever it is, I can go in and have this conversation with Maria Montessori in the modern era. And so it's incredibly helpful throughout your life, where it really does you can create GPTs around anything, or you don't even need to create a GPT. Again, if it's one-off, you could just type in you are an expert in blah, blah, blah. And then it's essentially the same concept. So as long as you do that, you can use this through anything, legal disputes. Again, talk to your lawyers, but your legal counsel. However, you could do it for HR, you could do it for potentially even accounting questions. Worth noting with accounting, these LLMs aren't good at math just yet. So if you're asking it to do 2 + 2, it'll probably answer 4, just because that's like super simple. However, if you want to have it do some like use this matrices to determine the the coefficient of friction on the it's not gonna it's just gonna make something up. So tread lightly with math, and that goes the same with accounting. So don't paste in your P&L and say, how can I maximize this, and then take those numbers seriously. Like, take it with a grain of salt. But it's going to only get better. And so over time, you would want to set up an agent. I say GPT because that's what ChatGPT uses, but all of these systems, even in our Sitecast system, we have agents that you interact with. In our system, we have agents that do headlines, that write the body text, that will determine what is the best photo to use for any given page. There's agents for everything. And so what you want to do is really figure out which agents you need in your day-to-day life and get really good at switching between them.
Good. Well, Brad, I know we're up on time. I do want to thank you because it's I learned a ton. I hope everybody that joined learned a lot. With this being said, this was a 2-part series, and I think it opened a lot of people's eyes to just a glimpse of the capabilities that this can do. We are going to, like we said, this is recorded, so it will go out on the Chicagoland-Wisconsin ERA page, as well as Aaron will be sending out a survey afterwards. And with it, there's a few more topics that if we get good feedback on and we think are worthwhile, we may have a couple fall sessions that we add to our plan for this year. So definitely looking for feedback. Again, if there's any closing remarks that you have, otherwise we can stop the recording, and this will get posted either later today or Monday. So
thank you, everyone, for attending.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day and enjoy March Madness.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Have a good day.